Marcus Thornton smelled trouble the second he walked into Sullivan's Steakhouse. The place was too fancy, white tablecloths, candles flickering, the smell of garlic butter thick enough to choke on. His suit reeked of mothballs. Claire had helped him pick it out 10 years back. He spotted the corner booth. The woman sat with her back to him, wheelchair parked at an angle. Dark hair, narrow shoulders. Then she turned. Those eyes, green as bottle glass, exactly like Claire's. Before he could place her, Derek stepped out from behind a pillar, phone up, recording. His brother-in-law's laugh cut through the dinner murmur. "Oh man, your face. Thought you wanted someone special, Marcus. Here's your charity case." Every head in the restaurant turned. The woman's face crumpled. She tried to wheel away, caught on the floor mat, and Marcus knew those eyes. Becca Winters, Claire's Becca. Gone 3 years, Derek's phone was still recording. The other diners were staring now. Marcus felt his neck go hot, that crawling sensation of being watched. Derek was showing his phone to a couple at the next table, grinning like he'd just won something. "See? I told you it'd be good. Look at him. Didn't even know she'd be in a wheelchair." The woman, Becca, it had to be Becca, was fumbling with her wheels, trying to back up. One wheel had caught on the corner of the floor mat. Her hands were shaking. Marcus had two choices: walk out and confirm he was every bit the fool Derek wanted everyone to see, or sit down. His legs moved before his brain caught up. He pulled out the chair across from her, sat down heavy, ignored Derek completely. The waitress appeared, nervous, holding 2 menus like shields. "Coffee," Marcus said. His voice came out steadier than he felt. 2 coffees. Black. Becca stared at him. Up close, he could see she'd been crying before he even arrived. Mascara smudged at the corners of her eyes. She looked older than he remembered. Hell, they all did. But those eyes were the same. The exact shade of green Claire's had been. "You don't have to stay," she whispered. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." Becca Winters. His voice was quiet. "Claire's Becca." She flinched like he'd struck her. "I go by Rebecca now. You disappeared after the funeral." "I know." Her hands twisted in her lap. "Derek told me you wanted to see me, that you'd asked him to arrange this, that you needed closure." The pieces clicked together like a wrench on a bolt. Marcus looked over his shoulder. Derek was still there, phone out, but now he looked confused. This wasn't going according to script. "I never asked for any such thing," Marcus said. "He told me he'd found someone nice. Someone who'd understand about Claire." Rebecca's eyes went wide. Then her face did something complicated. Shock, then understanding, then a flash of rage so hot Marcus felt it from across the table. "He lied to both of us," she said. "Yeah." Marcus picked up his coffee. It was still too hot to drink, but holding it gave his hands something to do. "Seems he did." Derek was walking toward them now, phone still up. "Hey, bud, you don't have to leave," Marcus said. Didn't look at him, kept his eyes on Rebecca. "We're talking." "But I thought—" "You thought wrong. Go on now." Derek's mouth opened, closed. Then he did something that made Marcus's stomach turn. He smiled. Took 3 more seconds of video, Marcus and Rebecca sitting across from each other, coffee between them, and left. The bastard got what he wanted after all, just not the way he planned it. They talked until Sullivan's closed around them. The waitress refilled their coffee 3 times, started giving them sympathetic looks around 9 o'clock. Rebecca told him about the accident, how the deer had come out of nowhere on Route 9, how she'd swerved, how Claire had died, holding her hand, saying, "Take care of him." "The police cleared you," Marcus said. "Wasn't your fault. I was driving. Deer ran into the road. I read the report 100 times, Becca." "Rebecca, wasn't your fault." She cried then. Not the quiet, polite kind of crying. The kind that comes from 3 years of holding it in. Marcus reached across the table, took her hand. Let her cry it out while the restaurant emptied and the kitchen staff started clanging pots. They talked about Claire, her terrible cooking, how she'd burned a pot of spaghetti so bad they'd had to throw the whole pot away, how she'd insisted on entering the church bake sale every year, even though her pies always came out lopsided. Marcus laughed. First real laugh in 3 years. It felt strange, like using a muscle he'd forgotten he had. "She'd want us to be okay," Rebecca said finally. "Both of us." "Yeah." Marcus looked out the window. Snow was falling now, big fat flakes that meant the roads would be bad. She would. He drove Rebecca home through the snowstorm, his truck heater cranking. The radio turned low to some country station. She lived 3 towns over, in a small, accessible apartment that smelled like coffee and hand soap. When he helped her out of the truck, she grabbed his wrist. "Thank you," she said, "for staying. Should have come found you years ago." Marcus meant it. "Should have known you didn't just run for no reason." Maybe Derek did us a favor. In the worst way possible. Marcus drove home thinking maybe she was right. Maybe some good could come from Derek's cruelty. The house was dark when he pulled in at midnight, but the porch light was still on. Claire had always insisted on that. Emma and Sophie were asleep upstairs. Everything was quiet, safe. For the first time since the funeral, Marcus went to bed without that crushing weight on his chest. He didn't see Derek's car parked 3 blocks away, headlights off, camera lens pointed at the road. Didn't see Derek mark the timestamp, 12:47 a.m. Didn't know his brother-in-law was building a file, but he'd find out soon enough. Marcus woke up at 5 like always. The coffee percolator made its familiar burbling sound, the smell filling the kitchen, Claire's blend, the one she'd special ordered from that place in Burlington. He kept buying it, even though it cost twice what the grocery store stuff did. Emma came down first, backpack already slung over one shoulder, nose in a book about environmental law. 16, going on 40, that one. "How was your date?" she asked, not looking up. "Different." Marcus flipped pancakes on the griddle. Claire's recipe, though his never came out as fluffy. Good different. Sophie appeared at the table, already drawing something in her sketchbook. The cardinal that had been at the window this morning, she'd seen it too. "You made pancakes." Sophie looked up, surprised. Marcus usually just did cereal. Felt like it. The girls exchanged a glance. That thing they did when they were talking without words, they'd been doing it more since Claire died. Their own private language. After they left for the school bus, Marcus tried calling Rebecca. She picked up on the 4th ring. "Marcus." Her voice was different, careful. "Thought we could maybe get coffee sometime. Talk more. I need some time to think. Last night was a lot." "Oh, sure. Yeah, of course." His chest tightened, but he kept his voice easy. "No pressure." She hung up. Marcus stood in his kitchen, phone still in his hand, trying not to feel like he'd done something wrong. Maybe he'd pushed too hard. Maybe she wasn't ready. The wood stove ticked as it cooled. Marcus walked out to the mailbox at 8:45, coffee mug in hand. The January cold bit at his face. He was thinking about whether to call Rebecca again or give her space. Thinking maybe Emma was right, maybe he could try to move forward. The manila envelope was thick, official looking, no return address. His hands went cold before he even opened it. Inside the house, he spread the contents across the kitchen table. Photos spilled out first. Him and Rebecca at the restaurant, laughing, her crying, him holding her hand. Another one of them in his truck, her looking at him through the window. Someone had typed captions on white labels, stuck them to the back. Widower already moved on? New girlfriend in wheelchair. Pity date or gold digger. Children home alone while father pursues inappropriate relationship. His stomach dropped. Then the legal papers. Gunderson and Price, attorneys at law, fancy letterhead, embossed, the kind of lawyers Marcus couldn't afford in 100 years. Petition for temporary guardianship of minor children. He read it twice, then a third time, because his brain couldn't make sense of the words. Derek Kane was petitioning for emergency custody of Emma and Sophie Thornton, claiming Marcus was emotionally unstable, making reckless decisions, and unable to provide a safe environment for minor children. The hearing was set for February 23rd. 30 days, 3 signatures at the bottom of the petition: Nora McKenzie, Betty Hollis, Patricia Vance, church ladies, women he'd known 20 years, women whose cars he'd fixed for free. Attached to the petition was something else, a property appraisal, 160 acres, Thornton family homestead, $2.3 million. Marcus stared at the number. He'd had no idea. It was just the house. Just the land his wife's great-grandfather had cleared with a team of horses. Just home. Tucked in the back was a photocopy of Claire's will, one section highlighted in yellow. In the event that Marcus Thornton is deemed unfit or unable to care for the minor children, Derek Kane shall serve as executor and guardian until such time as the children reach majority age. Marcus sat down hard. The chair creaked under him. Derek hadn't just humiliated him. Derek had filmed evidence, built a case, got witnesses to sign, set up a court date. The blind date wasn't cruelty, it was theater, and Marcus had played his part perfectly. Emma came home at 3:30, dropped her backpack by the door. "Dad?" He'd been sitting at the table for 6 hours. The coffee in his mug had gone stone cold. "Everything okay?" Marcus looked at his daughter, Claire's eyes, Claire's stubborn chin. 16 years old and already half raising her sister because he'd been too buried in grief to do it right. "Yeah, sweetheart." He forced a smile, gathered up the papers, shoved them in the envelope. "How was school?" "Fine." She was looking at him the way she did when she knew he was lying. "You sure?" "Just tired. Go on, start your homework." After she went upstairs, Marcus pulled the papers back out, read them again. The hearing was in 30 days. Derek had lawyers, money, photographs, witnesses, 3 church ladies who'd signed on the dotted line saying Marcus Thornton wasn't fit to raise his own daughters. And Marcus? He had a 9th grade education and a toolbox. Outside, The cardinal landed on the porch rail, red against white paint, Claire's favorite bird. Marcus wondered if she was watching him fail, the only thing that mattered. Derek showed up 2 days later with a box of fancy donuts. The expensive kind from that bakery in Burlington. Each one probably cost more than Marcus's breakfast. He knocked on the door at 7 in the evening, all smiles. "Just checking in, bud. Heard about your date." Derek set the box on the kitchen counter, looked around. "How'd it go?" Marcus stayed by the sink, dish towel in his hands. "Fine. That's good. That's real good." Derek wandered through the kitchen, casual-like, but his eyes were cataloging everything. The stack of unopened mail on the counter, the dishes in the sink, Emma's college brochures spread across the table. Place is looking a little overwhelming. "You managing okay?" "Managing fine. Because if you need help, I don't." Derek picked up his phone, checked something, but Marcus caught the angle. The phone was pointed at the kitchen, camera app open, taking pictures of the mess, the clutter, the evidence of a man barely keeping his head above water. Sophie appeared on the stairs, stopped when she saw Derek. "Hey there, Sophie girl. How's school?" "Fine." She didn't come down. Derek noticed the old surveyor's tools on the shelf by the door. Claire's grandfather's equipment, brass and wood, antique, probably worth something. He'd asked about them at Christmas, too. "You ever think about selling these? They're just collecting dust. Could get good money." "They're staying where they are." After Derek left, Sophie came down. "Dad, why does Uncle Derek keep asking about Grandpa's tools?" Marcus's blood went cold. "He asked you to, at Christmas. Said I should convince you to sell them so we could have a nice vacation." She twisted the hem of her shirt. It felt wrong. Marcus looked at his youngest daughter, 14 years old, and she'd spotted something he'd missed. Derek wasn't just after the house. He was counting pieces. The next morning, Marcus went to Marge's diner for lunch. Tuesday routine, same as always. But when he walked in, 3 church ladies were in the corner booth. Patricia Vance, Betty Hollis, Nora McKenzie, their voices carried, running around with that crippled woman not even 6 months after Claire. Heard he was out till past midnight. Those poor girls home alone. Derek's right to step in. Those children need stability. Marcus stood by the coffee station, pot in his hand, frozen. The 3 women looked up, saw him. Then Patricia stood, picked up her purse, and moved to a different booth. The other 2 followed, backs to him, like he was contaminated. Marge caught his eye from behind the counter, mouthed, "I'm sorry." Marcus set down $20 for a $6 cup of coffee he never drank and walked out. In his truck, hands gripping the wheel, he understood. Derek wasn't just building a legal case. He was poisoning the town against him. Small-town gossip spread like ice on a pond, and Derek had dropped the stone right in the center. That night, Marcus climbed to the attic. He needed the property deed, needed to understand what he was fighting for. The boxes were labeled in Claire's handwriting. Neat, precise, the hand of a woman who'd taught 3rd grade for 20 years. He found the deed in a metal file box, but underneath it was something else. A shoebox marked Becca Unsent. Inside were letters, 12 of them, all addressed to Rebecca Winters, all in Claire's handwriting, all dated after the accident. Marcus opened the first one, his hand shook. "Becca, I'm writing this in the hospital, 3 days before I go home. The doctors say I'm healing well, but you won't come see me. I understand why. But I need you to know this wasn't your fault. The deer came out of nowhere. You swerved to save us both. That I didn't make it, and you did, that's not guilt. That's just the way things fell. Don't let this steal your life. Please, come back. Love." Claire. Marcus read all 12. They got more desperate toward the end. Claire had kept writing, even when Rebecca never wrote back. Kept trying to give her friend permission to forgive herself. Emma appeared at the top of the attic stairs. "Dad, what are you looking for?" "Found it." Marcus held up the shoebox. "And something else. Something Becca needs to see." He drove to Rebecca's apartment that evening. 3 towns over, small building with a ramp. When she opened the door, he just handed her the box. "Claire wrote these. After the accident, she wanted you to read them." Rebecca's hands trembled as she opened the first letter, then the second. By the third, she was crying. Marcus sat with her on the couch, their coffee going cold on the table, while she read every single one. "She forgave me," Rebecca whispered. "There was nothing to forgive. I ran away. I left you and the girls. And now you're back." Marcus looked at her. "Derek thinks he's broken me down, but I'm starting to think he forgot something." What's that?" "That people like you and me, we've already been through the worst thing. What's he got that can hurt worse than losing Claire?" Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I transcribe medical records for hospital networks. Derek Kane. I've seen that name before. In work files. He works at County General. No, somewhere else. She frowned. Give me time. I'll remember. Marcus drove home thinking maybe Derek had made a mistake. Maybe the people he'd used and discarded were about to become the people who brought him down. The house was dark when he pulled in at midnight, but Emma's light was still on upstairs. Through her window, he could see her at her laptop. The glow of the screen showed her search history. Can teenagers testify in family court? His daughters had known all along. The next morning, Marcus was making coffee when both girls came downstairs together. Not their usual staggered routine. Emma first, then Sophie, 20 minutes later, together. Purposeful. Emma was carrying something. An old Nike shoebox, the kind Sophie used to keep her cleats in back in middle school. Dad? Emma's voice was steady. Too steady. We need to talk. Now. Sophie pulled out a chair, sat down. Emma set the shoebox on the table between them like evidence at a trial. Girls, if this is about... We know about the guardianship petition, Emma said. We heard you on the phone with someone, probably a lawyer. Marcus's stomach dropped. You weren't supposed to... We've been investigating Uncle Derek since Thanksgiving. Emma opened the box. Inside was a spiral notebook, printed emails, an old cell phone, and a stack of Sophie's drawings. We knew something was wrong. Sophie pushed the notebook toward him. Emma's handwriting, neat as a court reporter's. Dates, times, quotes, observations. A timeline that started 3 months after Claire's funeral. November 15th. Uncle Derek asks Dad about property value. Just curious. December 8th. Uncle Derek asks about Grandpa's surveyor tools. Suggests selling December 25th. Uncle Derek leaves laptop open. Emails visible. See printouts. January 4th. Uncle Derek asks Sophie about Dad's new girlfriend. Before Dad went on date, Marcus read the whole thing. 2 years of documentation. His 16-year-old daughter had been building a case while he'd been drowning in grief. How did you... I'm on the honor roll. I know how to research. Emma pulled out printed emails. He left his laptop open at Christmas. I took pictures with my phone. The emails were between Derek and someone named Preston Hollis. Subject lines like Thornton property acquisition and timeline for development. One message made Marcus's hands shake. Preston, what about the old man? Derek, breaking him down, gradually. One more push and he'll sign voluntary guardianship. The blind date should do it. Public humiliation, witnesses see him unstable. Psychiatrist is ready to provide assessment. Preston. And the girls? Derek. Foster care if necessary. They're not the asset, the land is. Sophie had been quiet, but now she pulled out the old phone. I recorded him last time you visited, when you were in the garage. Sophie, you can't just... Yes, I can. It's legal. I looked it up. She was trembling, but her voice was fierce. I'm 14, not stupid. Emma took the phone, plugged it into a speaker. You should sit down for this. The first recording started. Derek's voice, tinny but clear. The old man's barely holding it together. I give it 2 more weeks before he cracks. A second voice Marcus didn't recognize. Older, business smooth. And you're certain about the guardianship route? Courts don't like removing children from biological parents. I've got a psychiatrist on retainer. Photos documented. Hearings set for end of February. What about the daughters? Derek's laugh was cold. Foster care if necessary. They're not the asset. Once I'm executor, property sells, we split per our agreement. Girls can hate me from whatever group home they end up in. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest. Not break, crack, like ice under pressure. Emma played another recording. Derek on the phone outside the house. Sophie had filmed from her bedroom window. Property will be clear by spring, demolition by summer, you'll have your ski resort expansion. You're sure Thornton won't fight? He's a mechanic with a 9th grade education. What's he gonna fight with? There were 7 recordings total, each one worse than the last. By the end, Marcus was gripping the table so hard his knuckles had gone white. Why didn't you tell me? We tried. Sophie's eyes were wet. Remember Thanksgiving? I asked if Uncle Derek was being weird about the house. You said he was just concerned. Emma pulled out more papers. He's been selling Grandpa's tools on eBay. Different account name, but I found the listings. Same brass markings, same photographs from our house. She showed him the laptop screen. Sure enough, surveyor's equipment that Marcus remembered from the shelf, listed as antique brass surveyor's compass, excellent condition, and sold 3 weeks ago for $800. He's been stealing from us, Sophie whispered, piece by piece. Marcus looked at his daughters, really looked at them. Emma with her jaw set, Sophie with her sketchbook full of evidence drawings, Derek measuring walls, Derek photographing the deed, Derek's fake smile that never reached his eyes. They weren't children anymore. Maybe they hadn't been for a long time. I should have protected you from this, Marcus said. His voice cracked. You shouldn't have had to. You did protect us. Emma grabbed his hand. You taught us to be strong. You taught us to pay attention. You taught Sophie to draw what she sees and me to document everything. You taught us to fight. We're not going to let him take us, Dad. Sophie's voice was quiet but steel hard. This is our home. Mom's home. Marcus pulled both girls into a hug, first time he'd cried in front of them since the funeral. Emma's shoulders shook. Sophie buried her face in his shirt. We're going to fight, Marcus said when he could speak again. All of us, together. Emma pulled back, wiping her eyes. Do we have enough evidence? I don't know. We need a lawyer. A real one, not... His phone rang. Rebecca's name on the screen. Marcus answered, put it on speaker. Rebecca. Her voice came through steady and fierce. Nothing like the broken woman from a week ago. I remembered where I know Derek's name from. Papers rustled in the background. I've been searching hospital network databases all night. He's flagged Marcus. Ethics violation. Termination. Fraud investigation. What? Colorado 2018. He did this before. Different victims, same scheme. I've got the records. Emma and Sophie leaned in, listening. Can you come here? Marcus asked. We've got evidence, too. We need to see everything. I'm already in my car, Rebecca said. 20 minutes. After she hung up, the three of them sat at the kitchen table in silence. Outside, the cardinal appeared on the porch rail. All three of them saw it at the same time. Mom's watching, Sophie said softly. Marcus nodded. For the first time in 3 years, Claire's presence felt like a blessing instead of a ghost. They cleared the table and made fresh coffee, set out Emma's laptop, Sophie's drawings, the recordings. When headlights swept across the driveway, all three of them went to the door. Rebecca wheeled up the ramp Marcus had built last week, carrying a thick manila folder. Show me what you've got, she said. The War Council had begun. Rebecca spread the documents across Marcus's kitchen table, like a prosecutor laying out a murder case. Emma took notes. Sophie sketched the key dates on a timeline. Marcus made more coffee because his hands needed something to do. St. Anthony's Hospital, Pueblo, Colorado. Rebecca tapped the termination letter. Derek worked there as an administrator from 2015 to 2018. Fired for ethics violations? The letter was clinical, but the details underneath made Marcus's stomach turn. Derek had falsified disability assessments for a friend whose wife had dementia, created fraudulent medical documents claiming the husband was unable to provide adequate care. A judge granted guardianship. The friend sold the house and assets, kept 85%, gave Derek 15%. The wife ended up in a state facility. Family sued. Investigation revealed Derek's involvement. Criminal charges were filed but dropped, Rebecca said. Insufficient evidence. The friend took the fall alone. Derek moved to Vermont 2 weeks after the termination. Before he married Aunt Sheila, Emma said slowly. Or maybe that's why he married her. And Rebecca pulled out another document. Look at the dates. He married into your family 3 months after leaving Colorado. Sophie stopped drawing. He's a professional thief. That's exactly what he is. Rebecca's voice was cold. And I can prove it because I transcribed for hospital networks across 3 states. When I saw his name after the blind date, I started digging. Found a fraud alert memo from 2018. That's how I tracked him. Marcus read through everything twice. The pattern was clear as glass. Derek targeted people in grief, used the system against them, walked away clean while families shattered. Will this hold up in court? It's pattern evidence. Shows he's done this before. Rebecca leaned back in her wheelchair. But we need more than my research. We need a lawyer who understands guardianship fraud. Emma was already typing on her laptop. Pro bono family law attorneys in Vermont? I know someone. Rebecca pulled out her phone. Medical Advocacy Network connected me with attorneys after my accident. One of them specializes in exactly this kind of case. She dialed, put it on speaker. A woman answered on the second ring. Linda Vasquez. Linda, it's Rebecca Winters. I need help. Emergency guardianship fraud case, hearing in 3 weeks. Tell me. For the next 20 minutes, they laid it out. Marcus explained Derek's scheme. Emma played the recordings. Rebecca presented the Colorado evidence. Linda listened without interrupting, asked sharp questions that made Marcus grateful she was on their side. When they finished, Linda was quiet for a moment, then, this is textbook predatory guardianship. I'll take the case pro bono. Marcus felt something unclench in his chest. We can't pay. I know. That's what pro bono means, Mr. Thornton. Her voice was brisk but kind. I've seen men like Derek Kane destroy families. Not on my watch. Here's what we need. She rattled off instructions. Document everything. Don't engage with Derek. No social media posts. Prepare testimony. Emma and Sophie would likely need to testify. Was that okay? Both girls said yes before Marcus could answer. Good. Linda's voice carried approval. Teenagers who can articulate clear evidence. Judges listen to that. Ms. Winters, you'll serve as expert witness on the medical fraud? Yes. Mr. Thornton, we need character witnesses, people who can vouch for your parenting. Marcus thought, there's a young woman whose car I fixed for free when she broke down with her baby. Shop teacher from my high school. Neighbors. Get me their names and numbers. I'll prep them. Linda paused. One more thing. Derek's wife, Claire's sister. Does she know about this? Emma and Rebecca exchanged looks. Aunt Karen's been absent, Emma said carefully. She didn't come to Christmas. Didn't call for New Year's. Reach out to her, Linda said. Spouse testimony can be powerful, but don't pressure her. If she comes, she comes. After Linda hung up, they worked until midnight, building witness lists, organizing evidence into binders. Emma created a timeline poster. Sophie drew Derek's scheme as a flow chart. Money and lies and stolen property all connecting back to one man. Marcus called the young mother he'd helped. She answered on the first ring, baby crying in the background. Marcus, is everything okay? Need to ask you something. You remember when your car broke down on Route 7? I fixed your alternator. Wouldn't take payment? I remember. You saved my life that day. I need you to testify to that. In court. For a custody hearing. Silence. Then, someone's trying to take your girls? Yeah. At what time and where? I'll be there. His old shop teacher, Mr. Hartley, said the same thing. Marcus, you were the best student I ever had. Smart as anyone who went to college. Of course I'll testify. One by one, people said yes. Not everyone. Some folks had heard the gossip and wanted distance. But enough. Enough to show a judge that Marcus Thornton was more than Derek's lies. 2 weeks before the hearing, Rusty stopped eating. The old golden retriever had been Claire's dog first. She'd brought him home as a puppy 16 years ago. He'd been slowing down for months, but that morning he wouldn't even lift his head for bacon. Marcus knew. Rusty died that night in his sleep, lying on the rug by the wood stove. Past peaceful, which was a mercy. They buried him under the oak tree in the yard. All four of them, Marcus, Emma, Sophie, and Rebecca, who'd started coming over for Sunday dinners. They each said something they loved about him. Emma. He always knew when I was sad. Sophie. He smelled like home. Rebecca. He never judged, just loved. Marcus. He was Claire's dog first. Now he's with her. Sophie cried into Marcus's shoulder. Everything keeps dying. Or everything keeps making room for new things to grow. Marcus looked at the bare branches overhead, the buds just starting to show. Spring comes, Sophie. It always does. The week before the hearing became a blur. Linda visited the house, reviewed every piece of evidence, prepped each person's testimony. Emma and Sophie practiced in the kitchen, taking turns sitting in a chair, pretending it was the witness stand. Rebecca rehearsed her expert testimony until it was cold and professional, every emotion stripped away. In court, I'm not your friend, she told Marcus. I'm a medical transcriptionist who recognized a pattern of fraud. That's all the judge needs to see. Marcus practiced too. Linda's instructions were clear. Short answers, don't get emotional, stick to facts. Don't let Derek's lawyer bait you. He'll try to make you angry, Linda warned. He'll call you uneducated, unstable, negligent. Don't take the bait. I won't. 3 days before the hearing, Claire's mother called. Helen hadn't spoken to Marcus much since the funeral. She'd been angry. In that way, grief makes people angry at whoever's left behind. Marcus. Her voice was shaky. Emma told me what Derek's doing. Yeah. I'm sorry I've been distant. I blamed you for a while, for surviving when Claire didn't. She took a breath. But Derek's trying to take my granddaughters. I'll testify, whatever you need. Thank you, Helen. Claire would never forgive me if I let him win. The night before the hearing, Marcus couldn't sleep. He walked the property at 3 a.m, flashlight cutting through the dark, visited every corner, the barn where he'd taught Emma to change oil, the meadow where Sophie used to catch fireflies, the oak tree where Rusty now rested, under 2 feet of frozen ground. This land wasn't just property, it was witness to his family's life. Every tree, every fence post, every worn patch of earth held a memory. Claire's grandfather had cleared this land with horses. Her grandmother had planted the garden. Claire had brought Marcus here when they were 18, shown him the sunset from the ridge, and said, "Someday, this'll be ours." Derek wanted to erase all of it, bulldoze the house, clear-cut the forest, build condos for rich people from Boston who'd come up on weekends and complain about the mud. Tomorrow, Marcus would walk into a courthouse and fight for his daughters, for this land, for the right to keep living in the home that held every moment of his married life. Derek thought he'd already won, thought Marcus was too broken, too simple, too poor to fight back. But Derek forgot something. Some things. When you push them hard enough, don't break, they push back. Marcus found the slashed tires at 5 a.m. He'd gone out to start the truck, warm it up before driving the girls to school. All four tires, deep cuts, deliberate, no note, no witnesses, just a clear message. Officer Martinez came out, wrote up a report. Young guy, sympathetic, but his hands were tied. Without cameras or witnesses, Marcus, there's not much we can do. I know who did it. Knowing and proving are different things. Martinez looked uncomfortable. I heard about the custody hearing. Just be careful. Document everything. Marcus used Claire's old sedan to drive the girls to school. They saw the tires, understood what it meant. He's scared, Emma said. That's why he did it. Sophie's voice was small. Will he hurt us? Marcus met her eyes in the rearview mirror. Not while I'm breathing. But that night, alone in the house, after the girls went to bed, Marcus wasn't so sure. Derek was escalating. Vandalism today. What tomorrow? The house? The girls themselves? At 2 in the morning, Marcus gave up on sleep. Went to the kitchen, spread Derek's papers on the table. The voluntary guardianship transfer form sat on top, that blank signature line waiting. The house was so quiet, wood stove ticking as it cooled, the refrigerator humming. Outside, an owl called through the frozen dark. Marcus picked up a pen. Maybe Derek was right. Maybe the girls deserved better than a father who could barely keep his head above water. They could have stability, nice things, college funds. Derek had money, connections, opportunities Marcus could never provide. He looked at the family photos on the fridge. Emma at her 8th grade graduation, Sophie with her art prize from last year. Both of them smiling, happy, whole, because of Claire. Not because of him. Claire was the smart one, the organized one, the one who made their house a home. Without her, what was Marcus? Just a mechanic with rough hands and a 9th grade education. A man who couldn't even afford a lawyer without charity. His hand hovered over the signature line. Maybe Derek's right, he whispered to the empty room. Maybe I'm not enough. Footsteps on the stairs. Emma appeared in the doorway, hair messy from sleep, but her eyes were sharp. She saw the papers, saw the pen in his hand. Don't you dare. Marcus set down the pen. No. She crossed the kitchen, sat down across from him, took both his hands. Listen to me, Dad. Mom didn't make us whole. We already were whole. Your mother, Mom showed us how to see it. But you've been showing us how to live it. Emma's voice cracked, but didn't break. You taught me to change a tire when I was 12. You taught Sophie how to face her fear of the dark. You've made every meal, signed every permission slip, held us when we cried. I've been barely holding on. You're sad. That's allowed. Emma squeezed his hands. Uncle Derek is wrong. You're not broken. You're grieving. There's a difference. Marcus felt something crack in his chest. Not break. Crack open. He pulled Emma into a hug and cried, for the first time since the funeral. Really cried. The kind that comes from a place so deep it's been waiting years to surface. Emma held him. Parent and child. Roles reversed for just this moment. We're going to win tomorrow, she whispered. Together, because we're Thorntons. Marcus pulled back, wiped his eyes, looked at the surrender papers. Then he stood, walked to the wood stove, and fed them into the embers. Watched Derek's perfect plan curl and blacken and turn to ash. Yeah, he said, we are. They sat together until dawn broke cold and clear through the kitchen window. Emma fell asleep with her head on her arms. Marcus covered her with Claire's quilt, kissed her hair. The surrender papers were gone. The choice was made. At 8 in the morning, a knock came at the door. Sharp. Urgent. Marcus opened it to find Karen standing on his porch. Derek's wife, Claire's older sister. She looked thin, older than her 50 years, scared but resolute. Behind her, visible in the driveway, was a car packed with suitcases. I should have come sooner, she said. I'm sorry. Marcus just stood there. I have evidence, Karen continued, and I'm leaving him. I filed for divorce this morning. She came inside, sat at the kitchen table where Emma was just waking up. Sophie came downstairs, drawn by voices. Rebecca arrived 10 minutes later. She'd been coming over every morning to go over strategy. Karen spread her evidence across the table. Her hands trembled, but her voice was steady. I've known for months, found his emails at Christmas, confronted him. He told me to mind my own business, or I'd have nothing in the divorce. And she showed them Derek's financial records, investment losses, $340,000 in crypto and bad stock trades, credit card debt, $87,000, a second mortgage on their house, with Karen's signature forged. He's desperate, Karen said. Drowning. He needs this deal. Emma found the email to Preston Hollis. I need this deal done. I'm drowning. Then Karen dropped the real bomb. The psychiatrist, Dr. Kowalski, Derek's friend, owes him $15,000. She showed them the email. Derek to Kowalski. Write whatever assessment I need. I'll pay the bonus on completion. The assessment wasn't medical. It was bought. Rebecca stared at the evidence, then at Karen. Why now? Because Claire was my sister. Karen's voice broke. I've been a coward. I stayed quiet because I was scared to be alone. Scared to have nothing. But I can't let him destroy her family. She looked at Marcus. Claire would never forgive me if I didn't try to stop him. Marcus nodded slowly. Where will you go? Your mother-in-law, Helen. She offered me her spare room, said we'll heal together. Linda Vasquez reviewed Karen's evidence over speakerphone. This seals it. This is conspiracy to commit fraud. The bought psychiatrist alone is enough to discredit his entire case. For the first time in weeks, Marcus felt something like hope. They spent the rest of the day organizing everything. Karen's notarized statement, the financial records, the emails. Every piece of Derek's scheme laid bare and documented. That evening, all of them ate together. Marcus, Emma, Sophie, Rebecca, Karen. A family not by blood alone, but by choice, by witness, by the shared understanding that sometimes you have to fight for what matters. They told Claire stories and laughed and cried and felt her presence not as a ghost, but as a blessing. February 23rd arrived with a sky so blue it hurt to look at. Marcus stood in the bathroom, knotting his tie. The one Claire had given him for their 20th anniversary. Emma appeared in the doorway, held out a small photo. The four of them, Claire's last Christmas, all laughing. For luck, she said. Marcus tucked it in his jacket pocket, right over his heart. Let's go get our family back. The county courthouse smelled like floor wax and old paper. Marcus's footsteps echoed on the marble floor too loud, announcing his presence to everyone already there. The winter sun came through the tall windows in hard, cold shafts. They went through security. Rebecca's wheelchair set off the metal detector. The guard waved her through with practiced efficiency. Emma and Sophie held hands. Marcus carried a folder with their evidence, feeling like it weighed nothing and everything at the same time. They stopped at a vending machine. The coffee was terrible, burnt and thin, but they all got cups anyway. Emma took a sip, made a face. Dad's is worse than this. Sophie actually laughed. Marcus felt the tension break, just a little. Helen appeared from down the hallway. Claire's mother, gray hair pulled back, dressed in her church clothes. She walked straight to Marcus, put her hand on his shoulder from behind. Didn't say anything, didn't have to. Then Derek arrived. Expensive suit, fresh haircut, walking beside a man who looked like he cost $300 an hour. Richard Gunderson, according to the nameplate on his briefcase. Leather, probably Italian. Derek didn't look at any of them. Not Marcus. Not Karen, who sat on the opposite side of the hallway like a defector behind enemy lines. Especially not Karen. Family court was smaller than Marcus expected. Wooden benches, American flag in the corner, the seal of Vermont on the wall. Judge Mariana Reeves entered and everyone stood. She was 60-something, gray hair in a neat bun, sharp eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. She sat, arranged her papers, looked at both tables. Please be seated. The radiator clanged. Marcus smelled coffee and fear sweat and the faint scent of someone's perfume. We're here for the matter of Kane v. Thornton. Emergency petition for temporary guardianship. Mr. Gunderson, your opening statement. Gunderson stood, smooth, practiced, expensive. Your Honor, this is a case about love. About a father's love blinding him to reality. He turned slightly, acknowledging Marcus with a sad nod. Marcus Thornton is a good man. No one disputes that. He suffered devastating loss when his wife Claire died 3 years ago, but grief has compromised his judgment. He walked to the evidence table, picked up the photos. Evidence will show reckless behavior, an inappropriate relationship pursued without regard for his minor daughter's welfare, an unstable home environment, declining academic performance in the eldest child, a father who, despite his best intentions, is no longer capable of providing the stability these children desperately need. Gunderson's voice was sympathetic, reasonable, like he was doing Marcus a favor. Derek Kane, as family and as executor per Mrs. Thornton's will, seeks only to protect these children until such time as Mr. Thornton can receive the help he needs. This isn't punishment. This is love. He sat down. Linda Vasquez stood. Smaller, scrappier, but her voice carried steel. Your Honor, this is about greed disguised as concern. Evidence will show that Mr. Kane is a predator with a documented history of guardianship fraud. He's not saving a family. He's stealing one. Short, sharp, then she sat. Judge Reeves made a note. Mr. Gunderson, call your first witness. Patricia Vance took the stand. One of the church ladies. Marcus had fixed her Buick for free just last summer when the transmission went. She wouldn't look at him. Gunderson walked her through it gently. She'd seen photos Derek had shown her. Marcus at a restaurant with a woman in a wheelchair, crying, holding hands. It seemed inappropriate. So soon after Claire, she'd signed the petition because she worried about Emma and Sophie. Those poor girls need stability. Linda's cross-examination was brief. Did you witness this date yourself? No. Do you know who the woman is? No. Have you known Marcus Thornton for 15 years? Yes. In all that time, has he been a devoted father? Patricia hesitated. Yes, but thank you. Betty Hollis testified next. Same story. Saw the photos, worried about the girls, signed the petition. Linda's cross was identical, short, planting seeds. Then Dr. Raymond Kowalski took the stand. The psychiatrist was 50-ish, graying beard, calm voice. He'd conducted an assessment of Marcus based on interview and observation. His diagnosis, complicated grief disorder, emotional volatility, depression. In my professional opinion, temporary guardianship would allow Mr. Thornton time to receive proper treatment while ensuring the children's welfare. He sounded so reasonable. So medical, like he was prescribing antibiotics, not taking someone's children. Linda's cross was careful. What is your relationship with Derek Kane? Professional only. You've never socialized with him? Kowalski shifted. We may have had coffee once or twice. I see. Thank you. She didn't push harder. Not yet. Marcus could see her saving ammunition. Then came the photos. Gunderson had them blown up on poster boards. Marcus and Rebecca laughing. Marcus and Rebecca crying. Marcus holding Rebecca's hand across the table. Rebecca, in his truck, looking at him through the window. Out of context, they looked like something they weren't. Note that this occurred while the minor children were at home, alone, unsupervised, Gunderson said. Mr. Thornton was out past midnight pursuing this relationship. He showed Emma's report card. 1B dropped to a C. A teacher's note. Emma seems preoccupied lately. Photos of Marcus's kitchen that Derek had taken. Dishes in the sink. Mail piled on the counter. A house that looked like a man, barely keeping his head above water, because that's exactly what it was. Gunderson painted a picture of a man overwhelmed, a man making poor choices, a man who needed help, not judgment. And the way he told it, taking the children away, was the kindest thing anyone could do. Marcus watched the judge taking notes, couldn't read her face. Derek took the stand briefly, performed concern like a man who'd practiced in a mirror. I love those girls. They're family. I'm just worried. His voice caught at exactly the right moment. The blind date incident showed me Marcus isn't thinking clearly. He needs support. Linda stood for cross-examination. Mr. Kane, have you ever been terminated from employment? Derek went rigid. I left a position in Colorado. It was a mutual decision. A mutual decision to leave after ethics violations? Objection! Gunderson shot up. Relevance? I'll allow it, Judge Reeves said. Answer the question, Mr. Kane. There were disagreements about policy. I chose to move on. We'll revisit that, Linda said quietly. Let it hang there like smoke. Derek looked at his lawyer, whispered something urgent. Gunderson patted his arm. Mid-morning break, Marcus stood in the courthouse hallway, dizzy. It looked bad. It looked so bad. Emma squeezed his hand. It's okay, Dad. That's how they work. Now we show them the truth. Rebecca adjusted her blazer, checked her wheelchair brakes. Her face was calm, professional. I've been hiding for 3 years, she said quietly. Time to stop. Judge Reeves returned at 10:47 a.m. Linda Vasquez stood. Her voice carried across the courtroom, clear as a bell. The defense calls Rebecca Winters. Rebecca wheeled to the witness stand. The bailiff held the Bible. She placed her hand on it, steady and sure. Derek's face went pale. Judge Reeves leaned forward, interested now. Ms. Winters, Linda said, how do you know the parties involved in this case? Rebecca looked directly at Derek for the first time. Since the restaurant, her voice was steady as stone. Claire Thornton was my best friend for 39 years. I was driving the car when she died, and Derek Kane manipulated both me and Marcus Thornton into that blind date as part of a scheme to steal a family's home. The courtroom went silent. Rebecca wasn't finished. She opened the folder she'd brought, pulled out documents, handed them to the bailiff. Your Honor, I'm a medical transcriptionist for hospital networks across 3 states. In that capacity, I process records from hundreds of facilities. Her voice was professional now, cold. I recognized Derek Kane's name from a fraud alert memo dated October 2018, and she presented a termination letter, official letterhead, signatures, the whole bureaucratic weight of institutional judgment. St. Anthony's Hospital, Pueblo, Colorado. Miss Kane was fired for ethics violations related to fraudulent disability assessments and estate manipulation. Gunderson shot to his feet. Objection. This is character assassination not relevant to the current. I'll allow it. Judge Reeves held up a hand. Pattern of behavior is relevant to credibility. Continue, Ms. Winters. But Rebecca laid it out like a prosecutor. Derek had helped a friend commit guardianship fraud on the friend's wife, who had dementia, created false medical documents, got a judge to grant guardianship. The friend sold the house and assets, split the money with Derek, 15% finder's fee. The wife ended up in a state facility. The family sued. Investigation revealed Derek's role. Criminal charges were filed but dropped due to insufficient evidence. The friend took the fall alone. Mr. Kane moved to Vermont 2 weeks after his termination. She looked at Derek. 3 months later, he married into the Thornton family. The judge was taking detailed notes now, her pen moving fast. Rebecca continued, "This is his pattern, Your Honor. He targets vulnerable people in grief. He manipulates systems, legal, medical, social, to access their assets. Then he walks away clean while families are destroyed." She pulled out the police report from Claire's accident. The blind date wasn't about helping Marcus heal. It was about creating evidence of instability. He lied to both of us. Told me Marcus had requested the meeting, told Marcus I was someone who'd understand, and then he filmed us to use in this proceeding. Gunderson tried cross-examination. Suggested Rebecca was biased because Derek had embarrassed her. Rebecca's voice didn't waver. "I'm here because Mr. Kane uses people's pain for profit. That's not bias, that's fact." When she wheeled back to the defense table, Derek was whispering urgently to Gunderson. His confidence was cracking like ice under a spring thaw. Linda called Emma Thornton. Emma walked to the stand, 16 years old and steady. She stated her name, her age, looked directly at the judge. "When did you first suspect your uncle was planning something?" Linda asked. 3 months after my mother died. He started asking about property values, how much the land was worth, if Dad had considered selling. She presented her timeline, 2 years of documentation in a spiral notebook. Dates, quotes, observations recorded with the precision of someone who knew evidence mattered. I documented everything because something felt wrong. Linda nodded. "Do you have physical evidence beyond your notes?" "Yes." Emma pulled out the old cell phone. "My sister recorded Uncle Derek during his last visit, when Dad was in the garage." The courtroom went silent as Linda set up the speaker. Marcus watched the judge lean forward. The recording played. Derek's voice filled the courtroom, tinny but clear. The old man's barely holding it together. "I give it 2 more weeks." The second voice. "And you're certain about the guardianship route?" "Psychiatrist on retainer. Photos documented. Hearing set for end of February." "What about the daughters?" Derek's voice, casual as discussing the weather. "Foster care if necessary. They're not the asset." Emma's hands were folded on the witness stand, but Marcus could see them trembling. The judge's pen had stopped moving. She was just listening now, her face unreadable. Emma presented the emails next. Derek and Preston Hollis planning property acquisition and demolition by summer. She showed the eBay account. Derek selling family heirlooms, grandfather's surveying equipment. While pretending to be concerned about the family, Gunderson tried to paint her as coached. "Isn't it true your father encouraged you to spy on your uncle?" "No." Emma's voice was clear. "My father didn't know. We did this because Uncle Derek scared us. He came to our house and said it smelled like death, that it should be torn down. That's our mother's house. We had to protect it." Something shifted in the judge's face. Just a flicker, but Marcus saw it. Recognition, understanding. Sophie testified next. Quieter, but her words carried weight. She corroborated Emma's timeline. Described Derek's coldness hidden under fake kindness. How he'd told her she'd be happier in a proper family with a pool. I have a proper family," Sophie said softly. "I just want to keep it." Judge Reeves asked her directly. "Do you feel safe with your father?" "He's the safest person I know." Sophie's voice didn't waver. "He's sad, but sad isn't dangerous." The judge made another note. Karen took the stand. Derek's wife, soon-to-be ex-wife. His face went from pale to gray when she was sworn in. Linda walked her through it. "What is your relationship to the parties?" "I'm Derek Kane's wife. And Claire Thornton's sister." The betrayal was visible, physical. Derek leaned over to whisper something to Gunderson, but his lawyer was already looking at the exit. Karen presented the financial records. Derek's desperation laid bare in numbers. 340,000 lost in bad investments, 87,000 in credit card debt, a second mortgage, with her forged signature. Then she dropped it. Dr. Kowalski, the psychiatrist who testified earlier, he owes Derek $15,000. The assessment wasn't medical. Derek paid for it. She showed the email. Derek to Kowalski. "Write whatever assessment I need. I'll pay the bonus on completion." The courtroom went still. Even the radiator seemed to stop clanging. "Why didn't you come forward sooner?" Linda asked gently. Karen's voice broke. "Because I was scared. Scared to be alone. Scared to have nothing." She looked at Marcus. "But Claire was my sister. I've been a coward, but I can't let him destroy her family." Gunderson tried to salvage it in cross. Suggested she was a vindictive spouse seeking revenge. This isn't revenge, Karen said quietly. This is accountability. Derek is a thief. I was his accomplice through silence, not anymore. Linda rested her case. Judge Reeves called a 15-minute recess to review the evidence. Derek stood abruptly, followed Gunderson into the hallway. Marcus could see them through the door that hadn't closed all the way. Derek was agitated, talking fast, hands moving. The court reporter stood near the water fountain, organizing her notes. She heard Derek hiss at his lawyer. They're just girls. What do they know? And that cripple's been bitter for years. The reporter's head snapped up. She made a note, walked back to the courtroom, and handed it to the bailiff, who passed it to the judge. When court reconvened, Judge Reeves read it. Her jaw tightened. She looked at Derek with something Marcus had never seen a judge direct at anyone before. Cold fury. Everyone in the courtroom knew. Marcus knew. Emma and Sophie knew. Rebecca knew. Derek had lost. Judge Reeves arranged her papers with deliberate precision. The courtroom was silent except for the radiator and someone's nervous breathing. I've reviewed the evidence, she said. Her voice was precise, surgical. I've heard the testimony, and I've been made aware of certain intemperate remarks made during the recess. Derek's face went white. Gunderson looked confused, then horrified as the bailiff showed him the court reporter's note. The judge looked directly at Derek. Mr. Kane, I've been on this bench for 30 years. I've seen every kind of custody case imaginable, but I don't believe I've ever seen such a calculated attempt to exploit a family's grief for financial gain. She picked up her gavel. The petition for emergency guardianship is denied. Emma grabbed Marcus's hand. Sophie started crying, but the judge wasn't done. Furthermore, Mr. Thornton is clearly a capable and devoted father. The minor children are thriving in his care. Evidence of Mr. Kane's conduct, both historical and current, is deeply troubling. She looked at the prosecutor's table. I am referring this matter to the district attorney's office for investigation of fraud, conspiracy, and potential perjury. The gavel came down. Final. Absolute. Additionally, I'm issuing an emergency restraining order. Mr. Kane is prohibited from any contact with Mr. Thornton or the minor children. He is prohibited from entering the Thornton property or attempting to interfere with the estate in any way. On another strike of the gavel. This court finds Mr. Kane's conduct to be predatory and his testimony to be wholly lacking in credibility. Mr. Kane, I strongly suggest you retain criminal counsel. We're adjourned. The gavel's echo filled the courtroom like thunder. Marcus sat frozen. Couldn't quite believe it was over. Couldn't believe they'd won. Then Emma and Sophie threw their arms around him, both of them crying. Rebecca wheeled over, took his hand. Helen's hand landed on his shoulder from behind, squeezing hard. Derek stood slowly. The bailiff approached. Restraining order required an escort. As Derek walked past Marcus's table, he leaned in, voice low and vicious. You'll regret this. Marcus met his eyes. Calm, final. No, I won't. Derek was led away. Gunderson gathered his papers quickly, wanting distance from his client. Preston Hollis, the developer, shook his head from the back row and walked out. Business was business. This deal was dead. Karen sat alone in the gallery, crying quietly. Relief and shame and grief all mixed together. Marcus caught her eye, nodded. Forgiveness given, or at least understanding. Outside the courtroom, people were waiting. The young mother Marcus had helped, Mr. Hartley. Neighbors who'd come to testify if needed. They applauded when the family emerged. They'd won. The February afternoon was cold, but the sun broke through the clouds as they stepped outside. Like the weather itself was celebrating. Marcus stood on the courthouse steps, breathing air that tasted different than it had 3 hours ago. Free. That's what it tasted like. Nora McKenzie approached first. The church lady who'd withdrawn her signature from the petition. She looked older, ashamed. Marcus, I'm sorry. I should have known better. I should have trusted what I knew about you instead of listening to Derek's lies. Marcus nodded. You came around. That's what matters. I'm going to tell everyone at church what really happened. Set the record straight. I'd appreciate that. The young mother, whose car he'd fixed, pushed through the small crowd, baby on her hip. Thank you for fighting. You showed me what it looks like. To stand up. Mr. Hartley shook his hand. Proud of you, son. One by one, people who'd come to testify stopped to say something. Not all the town had turned out. Some folks still believed the gossip, or didn't want to get involved. But enough. Enough to show that community could correct itself, given truth and time. Preston Hollis, the developer, stood by his Tesla, watching. When Marcus met his eyes, the man just shrugged. No hard feelings. No feelings at all. Business was business, and this particular business was dead. He drove away without a word. Rebecca wheeled up beside Marcus. Well, what happens now? We go home, make dinner, breathe. That simple? That simple. But Emma had other ideas. Can we stop at Marge's? I'm starving. So they did. All of them piled into Rebecca's accessible van. Marcus, Emma, Sophie, Rebecca, Helen, even Karen, and drove to the diner on Main Street. The same three church ladies were there. Patricia, Betty, and one other Marcus didn't recognize. They were in the corner booth, coffee going cold, probably discussing whose business to mind next. They went silent when Marcus walked in. Emma and Sophie walked past them first, found a booth big enough for 6. Emma stared at the women, didn't blink, didn't smile. Just stared with all the righteous fury of a 16-year-old who'd just testified in court to save her family. Patricia looked away first, then Betty. They gathered their purses, paid their bill, left without finishing their pie. Marcus slid into the booth and laughed. First real, full laugh in 3 years. The kind that comes from deep in your chest, from a place that's been locked up and finally opened. Sophie laughed too, then Emma, then all of them. Maybe too loud for a Tuesday afternoon diner, but nobody cared. Marge brought coffee without being asked. Heard you won. Pie's on the house. The pie was too sweet, like always. Perfect anyway. They ate and talked and didn't discuss the hearing. Talked about normal things instead. Emma's college applications, Sophie's art project due next week, Rebecca's plans to go back to school, social work maybe, she'd been thinking about it. Helen told a story about Claire burning Thanksgiving turkey so bad the smoke alarm went off 3 times. They laughed at that too. Claire's memory wasn't haunting anymore. It was just part of the conversation, natural as breathing. Karen was quiet, but she smiled when Emma reached over and squeezed her hand. Outside the window, Marcus saw the cardinal land on the diner's porch rail, red against weathered wood. All of them noticed at the same moment. Mom's hungry too, Sophie said. Nobody argued. They drove home in the late afternoon. The property appeared through the trees. Still theirs, still whole. The house exactly as they'd left it that morning. Porch light on, smoke curling from the chimney where he'd banked the wood stove. Emma was the first one out of the van. I never want to see a courtroom again. Derek might have a trial, Sophie said. We might have to testify. If we do, we do. Marcus looked at both his daughters. Together, they went inside. The house welcomed them back. Wood smoke and coffee and that particular smell of a place lived in for generations. Marcus made fresh coffee in Claire's percolator while the girls heated up leftover stew. Rebecca stayed for dinner like she had been most nights lately. Not a girlfriend, not a replacement, just family, the kind you choose. They sat at the kitchen table and ate and felt the weight of the day begin to lift. Not gone, it would take time for that, but lighter. What do you think Derek's doing right now? Sophie asked. Doesn't matter, Marcus said. He's not our problem anymore. After Rebecca left, after the girls went upstairs, Marcus checked the locks. Not from fear this time, just routine. The good kind, the kind that meant home and safety and normalcy. He sat alone in the quiet kitchen, processing. They'd won. The house was theirs. The girls were his. Derek would face justice eventually when the DA got done with him. But winning wasn't the same as healing. Justice wasn't the same as peace. For that, they'd need time and each other. Marcus looked at the family calendar on the wall, still in Claire's handwriting. March was coming. Mud season, then spring, time to plant something that would grow. He went to bed that night and slept without nightmares for the first time in 3 years. Slept the deep, dreamless sleep of a man who'd been to war and come home safe. In the morning, Rebecca was coming over for breakfast. They were going to plan the spring garden, talk about what to plant where, what would grow best in Vermont soil, what would last through the hard seasons. Some things, Marcus was learning, were worth the wait. 3 months later, the snow finally melted. April in Vermont meant mud season, that in-between time when winter's done but spring's still making up its mind. The ground was soft, the air smelled like thawing earth and pine sap, and the buds on the oak tree were just starting to show green. Marcus, Emma, Sophie, and Rebecca stood by the front porch with shovels and a rose bush and a burlap sack. Yellow Lady Banks, Claire's favorite. Derek was awaiting trial. Karen was living with Helen, the two of them healing in their own time. The property was safe. The girls were his. Emma had gotten into the University of Vermont environmental law program. She'd be the first Thornton to go to college. Sophie was drawing again. New subjects now. Not just memorial portraits of her mother, but landscapes, animals, the cardinal that kept appearing like clockwork. Rebecca came over every Sunday, cooked with them, told Claire stories, made the girls laugh. Not a replacement. Nobody could be that. Just family, the kind you choose, the kind that shows up. They dug the hole together, took turns with the shovel. Marcus held the rosebush while the girls tamped earth around the roots. Rebecca directed from her chair, told them when it was deep enough, when to water. When they finished, they stood back and looked at it. Fragile, but rooted. Something that would outlast all of them, if they tended it right. The cardinal landed on the porch rail, red against white paint, watching them with those black eyes. Mom says hi, Sophie whispered. Nobody questioned it anymore. They headed inside, tracking mud, laughing about it. The house smelled like coffee and wood smoke and lavender. Claire's sachets still in every drawer, her presence in every room, not haunting now, but blessing. Marcus paused at the door, looked back at the rosebush, at the farmhouse that had held 4 generations, at the mountains beyond, still touched with snow at the peaks. Derek had tried to take everything. The house, the girls, his name. But Derek forgot something. Thorntons build things to last. The Cardinal took flight, heading toward those mountains, and Marcus went inside, where his family was waiting. The door closed behind him. The porch light stayed on. Some things endure, some things push back. Some things, when you tend them right, grow stronger in the breaking.